First off, thank you for doing this. And can you introduce yourself and tell us a bit about your background as an educator? How did you end up teaching at Templeton Academy, and what subjects do you cover?
Sure. My name is Rachel Stagner. I've been teaching for about 15 years. I started in 2009. I started teaching in Portland, Oregon, and that's where I got my master's degree in education, as well as a master's of science in teaching. And then I moved to DC in April 2018, or no, sorry, 2018. It was summer of 2018 for the Einstein Fellowship, which I did at NASA. And then I ended up staying in DC. And next year, 1920, got a position here at Templeton Academy. So I'm the STEM coordinator. I also teach basically everything because we're a very small school. So I've taught physics, chemistry, biology, various variations of biology, ecology, human ecological history. Teaching a NASA Earth Science research class right now. I'm teaching marine biology. So I teach basically everything. The only things that I don't feel comfortable teaching at this point is I don't have the background to teach like an advanced physics class or a really advanced chemistry class. Other than that, I can teach it all.
That's great. It's a little bit of
Yeah,
everything.
it's kind of overwhelming when I think about it. I'm like, oh my goodness, yeah.
So, I mean, in that respect, you wear a lot of hats. Was
That
it
is
a
correct.
PAMST? Do you call it a PAMST awardee? I don't know.
Oh, yeah. The presidential word for excellence in math and science teaching, which was actually discontinued last year. But in 2023, I applied and I was named a finalist. And then in January of 2024, they released the list of winners. And so I was a winner in the science category for teachers in 2023.
Awesome.
Which is pretty great.
Yeah, well, and you're, let's see, an Albert Einstein Distinguished Educator Fellow, a founder of STEMteachersDMV,
That is
and
correct.
NASA STEM Education Ambassador.
That is correct.
On the Soil Moisture and Assessment and Validation team at Goddard, right?
Yeah, I was part of the CCRI program as well last summer.
How does your work, with NASA at least, inform what happens in your classroom? And then can you go and tell me a little bit more about your STEM Teachers DMV?
Sure. So I always try to make sure that what my students are learning is relevant to the real world. So the things I learned through my fellowship when I was at NASA with the Einstein Fellowship in the Aeronautics Mission-Directorate. So I learned a lot there that I was able to apply. Like I did like an engineering course when I first started teaching at Templeton, and we were able to use some of the things, like talked about the X-59 and other X-planes. But last summer when I did the CCRI program, we developed a curriculum module, which was focused on the 5 teacher teams and the research projects that we were working on. So we created a unit plan. And I think my goal all along was to try to use that unit plan in a new class and kind of focus it around NASA Earth Science research. So I learned a lot during that experience as well about satellites and remote sensing. And so this whole class is based on the curriculum, but also like helping the students navigate things like how to collect data or how to pull data from NASA resources, as well as ARSET, which is that, I always forget the acronym, but the ARSET training program. So they've been using that to help them understand remote sensing and NASA Worldview and NASA Eyes on Earth. So hopefully all these resources are going to lead to them. We are finishing up our last unit on urban heat islands right now. And then starting after spring break in April, they're going to start to choose their own adventure and pick a topic that we've covered or something maybe tangentially related to it that they can either use NASA Earth data for or go out and collect data on their own, maybe a little combination of both based on their interests. So that is hopefully the plan. So far it's going well. And I hope to incorporate STELLAs, maybe even as soon as next week, to try to kind of introduce them to the students and have them just do some basic experiments with them so they can kind of understand the purpose and the value of them. And yeah, we'll see what happens. So that's the goal. As far as STEM Teachers DMV, that was kind of the brain project of a colleague of mine. Her name is Alyssa Levy. She was, excuse me, she was at the training as well. She was one of the teachers that built a STELLA, but she moved from New York City about 2 years ago, I think. And I think she was a member of STEM Teachers NYC. I had to think about the acronym there for a second. And then she'd always wanted to start that here because there's not a lot of professional development organizations for teachers in DC. There's the Virginia Association of Science Teachers. There's a Maryland version, but there's not one that was really focused in DC that we knew of. So we decided to start it beginning of last year, January. We had some events last year, which were pretty successful. And we keep offering more this year, which is really great. So the goal there is to offer free PD to teachers. We've partnered with American University and the DC Space Grant to help host us and to do the hard work of finding us a place to be on a regular basis and helping us with a lot of other stuff too. So it's been really great.
And then what drew you to the NASA STEM Education Ambassadors Program? And what has the experience been like so far as a practicing teacher?
I mean, Matt is the one who told me about it. And as a CCRI fellows last year, we were invited to be a part of it. So I'm continuing it with this year. I think the value of it, from my perspective, is the networking. I'm lucky enough because I've had a chance to be with NASA a couple different occasions and different hats, or wearing different hats, that I know a lot about the resources that are shared, but that doesn't mean that I can't learn more stuff. So every time that we have one of the meetings, I'm usually, hopefully, if I'm able to come, I'm learning more about like some of the ways that people are using it, but also I think the networking is very important because that's, for example, Nick and I met during one of the meetings, the office hours, right? So like he and I now are hopefully going to collaborate a little bit to do something with Stella. And he has a student who, yes. So Matt Pierce and Nick Barbie, that's it. Yeah. So like Nick Barbie, another teacher is really interested in incorporating Stella in his classroom, has done some work with that. So I think that's the power. I think what I'd like to use the STEM Ambassador Program for is to find other teachers who want to collaborate on projects that don't just take place where we are, but maybe comparing data across different classrooms, different states, all of that. That would be great. And just for general support and like knowing that there are awesome teachers out there, it's really nice.
And you participated in the Stella Professional Development Workshop at American University on May
Correct.
24th, 2025, amongst at least one or two others. What was your experience like as both a participant and a contributor to these events?
You said May 24th. Was that the one that happened last year at the end of the CCRI program?
Yes.
Or are you talking about the one in January? Okay.
Well, all of them. We might as well just do all of them. So there were two or three different events, right? So I know we did two at American University at least, right?
That's right, right. The one last year in May, I think, was the end of the CCRI program. Ryan Miller and I, another CCRI fellow, we basically put on that professional development, which Stella was part of it. So that was really great. I think I learned a lot more about Stella and also started to think about how other people could use it in their classroom. And the one that we did here in January, same thing. Like every time I'm having a chance to build a Stella or help other people build a Stella, I learn a little bit more about how to use it myself. And so I am continuing that knowledge. And hopefully now I have a colleague here in DC, Brooke, who I'm working with on that project. And so there's more of us now Hopefully there's more of us. It's like that Hamilton song, like there'll be more of us, right? Like, so we're going to just keep hopefully doing things with Stella's so that we can all bring it to our kids, because Stella's a great program. It needs more support, and it's doesn't have the kind of built out support that you would expect, for example, for like a commercial product, right? And so I'm happy to help with some of that. And I think that's the power of keeping up with these kinds of professional developments, is it just gets more people who are interested in doing that.
So you haven't introduced Stella formally to your classes, as you said, but you're hoping to bring
Not yet.
NASA Earth science to students soon, likely after spring break in early April. Yeah. What's the main factor in the timing, and what does the runway to introducing it look like for you? What do you intend to do with it with your students?
We've got, I think the runway to it was, I wanted to have the first part of the class be introduction to different tools. That's where the curriculum came in, because now they've been learning about all the different ways that NASA Earth science research can help inform us about the Earth and how they do that, how scientists do that. So the point of bringing Stella in was to give them another tool. So as they start to think about their own questions, like, here's another tool that you can use. You can potentially build it themselves. We'll see if anyone's interested in doing that, and then also use it to collect data with. So I think that's kind of the rationale about why and when. And in terms of the on-ramp for it, like, I think I'm going to model what I introduce it to them with kind of some of the basic stuff that the teachers and I were doing at some of the workshops, like obviously showing them how to use it, how it works, why it works, and just having them go collect data. Like, I think that's probably going to be the easiest thing. I'll probably have them come up with like a basic question, and then just go collect some data, and then hopefully give them some structure of how to analyze it, because that, I think, will also be very cool for them, which is another reason why taking this art class is helpful, because I think that as I get better with manipulating the data and figuring out what you can do with it, I'll be able to help the kids with that too. So that's the goal. That's the timing part of it too.
Well, and in that respect, you had mentioned ARSET. How do you think ARSET basically, how are you using it to either prepare your students or have them use it with Stella so that they can get better understanding?
We used ARSET the first couple weeks of the class. I had assigned them the introductory module, like there's 5 parts of it, I think. So we broke it up over like 5 or 6 class periods where they were doing one module. And then we talked about it, and they had like a little check for understanding quiz, which, spoiler alert, was just questions from the ARSET module. that I just used for them for in-class understanding, which was great. I think it was a really good way for them to be introduced to what satellites do and how remote sensing works. And I think actually they told me that they really enjoyed it. And when I did it last summer as part of the CCRI experience, like, I found it very useful and it taught me a lot. And so I just figured that instead of me trying to fumble my way through trying to teach them a lot of that stuff, that the ARSET actually did a better job with all the visuals and the connections to satellites already built in. So that prepares them, because it will actually give them some kind of a background with which to understand what the Stella is doing. And also, whatever they choose to do for their research, if they want to, like, I've just given an example, since we're doing urban heat island stuff right now, if they wanted to do some data collection on the ground with, infrared thermometers or pollution sensors or whatever, they could actually then go back and compare that data to NASA data, satellite data. And I think they will have a better idea of how that data is collected and how it's used. So yeah, I think, and at the end, I know the last module in the ARSET training is like a looking at a couple of examples of how to use it. So while it's not like exhaustive, I think that if any kids want to challenge themselves, like with something that ARSET has a training for, that I can also point them towards that module and hopefully help them figure out what to do with huge data sets from NASA. That's why I like the STELLAs too, because these data sets are not massively huge. And while complicated to deal with, as all data sets are not as overwhelming as a satellite download.
So would you say it's sort of a nice bridge? Don't put words in your mouth to understanding some NASA data and making it more
Oh, yeah,
approachable?
for sure. Yeah, I think it is definitely a bridge to help them figure out the two things and how to go from small scale data collection to massive data collection.
And so how have the students responded to RSAT content so far? Have you seen the light bulb moments you were hoping for?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's a small class. There's only 9 of them. So I talk to them often about what are you enjoying? Like after every mini unit in the CCRI, I'm like, hey, what did you like? What did you not like? Which I'm going to share with Matt Pierce. But also like after the RSET modules, like after we did like the kind of check for understanding quizzes, like they were doing really well with that. And they also are really excited about it. Like they are very excited about it. Like I was kind of surprised. Not really, but I was hopeful. And hopefully seeing them excited about it was really good. So trying to think if there was any comments in particular. I think overall they just got some comments like, oh yeah, I understand this better now, and I understand how satellites work. Their curiosity was piqued too. Like I would get some questions about different types of satellites and like how they're able to turn um, observations, active, passive observations and data into pictures and images. And I think the RSET working in tandem with the CCRI stuff was really helpful because in particular, the cyclone unit was using Jupyter notebook to get them to take cyclone data and it maps it out for them. And so that I think was a really nice bridge because they were able to see like how raw data then gets turned into a map image that they can then analyze. And they actually found that really interesting. That particular unit, I think, which was so data heavy, was really fascinating for them. I haven't seen them that engaged in a while. They were just sitting there over the computers, right? Like just looking at like cyclone data and changing variables and trying to figure out what it means. And it was really fun. So that's how I think it's all been helpful.
And so you can see, I think you can see how Stella, at least for the data sets and all that, and seeing sort of those examples might be useful for, playing around, especially with like digital twinning and AI and all that as it comes up.
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
So
I think that they are
go ahead.
very, very fascinated by this, which is fun.
So, and then, I mean, along with, the data science and all that, Stella supports a wide range of engineering skills from circuit design and 3D printing to optical engineering and data analysis. Which of those
Mhm.
dimensions do you think will most resonate with your students and why?
I think the analysis part, because I am not sure if we will actually build any for the students. So like while I think the engineering part is really interesting and fascinating, and eventually I'd like to have that happen, because this is such a broad and kind of overly kind of focused on just earth science in general, like I don't know if any students will choose to go that route. If they did, that'd be great. I do have a couple kids who are really interested in engineering that I think we could build around, and I will push that for those kids. But um, I think the data analysis part is going to be the most useful. And probably the investigation design, like the thinking of how we can use this tool. So like understanding its capabilities and then trying to come up with some kind of a investigation and then take that data and do something with it. I think that will be the most useful part for these kids. Um, I do know that this is kind of related, unrelated, that another teacher, Kenneth Leslie, he came in at the end of our Stella PD on the 24th of January. He's actually doing a summer engineering workshop. Do you know about this? Oh, wow. I haven't told you about this yet. Okay. So DC Public Schools has programs. One is CCRI. I can't remember what that stands for. The other one is, I guess, Summer Work Program. Again, I'll get you the acronyms if you want them. But he does, because there's not a lot of internship availability with engineering and STEM in DC proper, and he teaches at McKinley Technical High School. He basically every summer creates opportunities for the students. Some of those things are like the rover programs that NASA used to have, but this year he's created a 6-week like boot camp on Stella. So, and I'm maybe helping with him. The goal was to have like 5 of my students and 20 of his students in this. And we're going to start at American University where the kids are going to learn and build and 3D print everything. And then go from that to the data collection to the eventual presentation of something that they've created, sciencey, like data and analysis. So he's a busy man. He's a busy man, so I haven't really been able to pin him down. He's got this whole plan. He's talked to Chelsea at American University and the DC Space Grant. And this is hopefully moving forward. I may or may not be able to help with that. But that's the plan. So there's even more in the works. And I think that Kenneth is such a great advocate for everything STEM in DC that if he gets his claws into Stella, which he has, he will probably use it pretty regularly, which is great.
And now would you recommend, like, say, him using ARSET? Yeah. So maybe they build their Stella and then, and then they need examples of how to use it and all that. So would you recommend, like, using ARSET to start, say, understanding some of these investigations that they might be able to make and actually do some comparisons with NASA data too, or anything like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think.
How would you implement it? Basically.
I mean, I think that could be part of the how does remote sensing work, right? And how do you take remote sensing data and make data visualizations or just analysis with? So I think that I'm not sure when I would insert it. I'd probably have them build them first and then like talk about what is that they've created here and then like introduce, okay, so great, now how can you use this? I think that would be a good bridge between this is a tool that we can use and here is how NASA satellites do this on a larger scale. It could help just inspire them. ARSET's really good, the introductory module with giving them lots of ideas of how these satellites collect data and what they are used for. So it might give them some inspiration as they think about how to design their own projects.
So in your view, how do ARSET and Stella work together? Does one set the stage for the other? Do you see them as parallel tools, so on and so forth?
They're not parallel tools. I think, depending on a student's interests, I think if especially if they're coming in with very, very, not few, but if they're coming in with not a lot of background information on remote sensing in general, I think it provides a good foundation for understanding that. And then I think then if you kind of make that natural connection between this is like a mini satellite in a lot of ways, then they kind of understand how it works and then even start to maybe think about what kinds of data they could collect with it and how it connects to the bigger missions at NASA or science. And again, like the idea of, this is what the satellites do. You're able to do this with a small instrument and in a smaller scale around your school, around your neighborhood, around your community. It might even lead them to think about how they could compare this data that they've collected with the satellite data. But also, I think some of the the other ARSET modules I know are specifically how to use certain data sets and what to do with them. And I think that based on a kid's interest, then, it could be a natural fit to help point them towards some of those resources, to help them learn about what they might be able to do with the data after they collect it.
As a nationally recognized STEM educator and someone who has worked at NASA, you've seen both sides. What do you think teachers most need to feel confident to bring real NASA science tools into their classrooms?
I think a lot of it is knowledge. One of the things that I experienced when I was at headquarters was it was like a fire hose. There's so much stuff that NASA does, and also so much educational material, that I think just the knowledge of what NASA has in terms of educational, like programming and lesson plans, and then like these different things like the AeroCat and the Stella and all of the different kind of side things that people are able to do with NASA tools and data. I think that's the most important thing. That is like the limiting factor. It's just not well known. Like I think you get these specialists that have maybe heard of a program and they've done that, right? But like the sharing of that is somewhat limited, I think, or just there's just so much of it that it's just overwhelming. So I think exposure is a big one. And then I think professional development is also a big thing. Like if you can help teachers understand how to use some of these tools, that is always a great way to get them to do it. I think when you're introduced to a lot of, like I said, the fire hose effect, when you're introduced to all these things, you're like, wow, there's so many things, but then like there's often not enough time to kind of digest all of it and to figure out what you might do with it. So good professional development helps you not only learn about stuff, but also do it so that you can help your students do it later. I think that's the key. So targeted stuff like what we've been doing with the STELLA workshops is great. I think following up on that, I would like to do a follow-up session because I think the motivation always starts out high, because the teachers who come to these are self-selecting, right? They want to come and learn about this stuff, but then the kind of like realities of the school day and the school year and life, and not having potentially people to collaborate with, can kind of not halt progress, but kind of slow progress. So I think just following up on stuff is important too. Like if you do a STELLA workshop, let's do another one in like 3 months and have these people back. And then, hey, what have you done? What are you thinking? That kind of stuff. So it's like a cycle of professional development with a lot of NASA tools is important.
Yeah, I mean, I think ideally, if I were to do that, I'd like the folks who already did that workshop possibly to help proctor, the next workshop, so they get to, they get the other side of the experience as well. And
Right.
I think that, that would also really help as well, building those skills. Um, so let's see. So for a teacher watching this interview who is curious about Stella or ARSET but doesn't know where to start, what would you tell them? I know you've given some hints, but
I mean, ARSET's free. So I would log in and take the first module yourself. And I think that would be a good place for if a person is coming into this whole field of, like wanting to do this in their classroom with not a lot of background information, that's a great place to start. I didn't have a lot of background information. That's why it was such a good place for me to start. And then I think in terms of the STELLA stuff, I think if you are someone who teaches like engineering or any kind of circuit kind of like design, or mostly engineering, I guess computer science, I think that they could probably look at a lot of that material and figure it out and maybe use it. I think going to a professional development, if you have one in your area, is great, or just I think just like finding out where you can go build one if you can't build it yourself, or talk to other people who've used it, I think is really valuable. So even like the STEM ambassadors, right? Like, or any other resources that they can find, because it's a little intimidating, like it says it's this really cool instrument, but like if your background is not strong, then it might be intimidating. So I think reaching out to people who have used it, I think the GitHub is a good idea to help spur discussions. I'd like to see more of that. I think that's where you start, but yeah.
Finally, what's your vision for where STELLA ARSET and the community of educators can go over the next years, the next 2 years, and what would success look like to you? And of course, if there's anything else you'd like to add that I've neglected, please feel free to do so.
I think that this is going to have to kind of be a grassroots effort of teachers who want to learn more about it and who want to collaborate to kind of do those things, right? Like that would be successful to me. It's like if we had, I think Nick Barbie mentioned, like if we had some kind of a STELLA competition where students were able to share the research that they'd done in their classrooms, and maybe it's not a big formal competition, but even just a share-a-thon where students are like, hey, I did this really cool thing. I think that would be a success. I would like to see that. I would like to be able to collaborate with either people here in the district, like on a small scale, or teachers that are in other places to have their students do a project with STELLA and then compare that to something that I'm doing in my classroom. Like I'm just giving an example. Like maybe we wanted to look at, I don't know, plant health in another city and compare it to plant health here. That's not the perfect example, but like something that could be measured in multiple locations, right? And then the kids could like, hey, we found this here, and what did you guys find? I think that builds not only buy-in from the kids, but also gives them the sense that it's not just what's happening in our classroom that's important. Like we actually can collaborate with other classrooms and other teachers to see even more about the world than what we can measure here in our area. So that's what I think would be successful to me, is like creating these communities of practice with STELLA where teachers are talking to each other, and then maybe even having some kind of a place where students who are using STELLAs can share with each other. That would be very successful, I think.